Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles had one of the best seasons in the history of the NFL. They had the number 2 ranked defense and the number 7 ranked offense, but this includes a number 1 ranked passing defense and a number 1 ranked rushing offense. Truly a dominant team that even dominated throughout the playoffs, but will that continue into this year? Will they be good, or will they fall apart? In today's video, I'll give you a full offseason recap and a look into the future. Before I get into it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Hopefully, it will help grow the channel, but we'll see. As with any other dominant team, especially Super Bowl winning team, you fully expect for the team to have a lot of changes in the offseason, and that did happen with the Eagles, unfortunately. The first thing you look at is coaching changes, because last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they lost both of their coordinators and several assistant coaches. That happened a little bit this year, but not as bad as it could have been. Luckily, they've learned the cheat code of having a very old defensive coordinator who is a failed head coach. So Vic Fangio has not left the team, and he's even kept most of his assistant coaches there. So this defensive coaching staff will remain very strong. However, since Sirianni doesn't call the plays and the offensive coordinator does, this will make the offensive coordinator always a top prospect for new head coaches. And that was the case this year as well. We thought maybe we would get out of it. However, the Saints just had to steal him, which means that Jalen Hurts, unfortunately, will have yet another year of learning how to deal with a new coordinator and, more importantly, a new play caller. One of the downsides to Sirianni not calling plays, but I guess I'll deal with it. I mean, since he's become head coach, it has become one of the golden ages of the Eagles' history. 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 Super Bowl win, looking pretty good with a bright future ahead of him. So we know that one of the coaches changed, one stayed the same. Could be worse. I'm okay with that. But what happened in free agency, we also fully expected some major shakeups here. There were a lot of free agents on the team. Howie didn't want to pay some and not pay others during the season because, well, that could just kind of mess up the vibe around the locker room. So he didn't pay any, and he just waited for the offseason. There were several big questions with players who may leave, such as Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Zach Bond, Darius Slay was on the end of his contract, and Mekhi Becton. All of these guys were big question marks. What would happen? And unfortunately, the Eagles lost most of them. They only kept Zach Bond out of the group. Now, a lot of people will say he was the best one, the most important one. Zach Bond was arguably the best player, second best player, I guess, on the defense last year, and he was very important, so they did find a way to keep him through paying him a lot of money. He may have taken a minor discount compared to the open market, but not too much. The Eagles paid him pretty much fair value. The rest of the group, they lost out on, especially Milton Williams, who went for a boatload of money, but the whole crew, Josh Sweat's gone, Milton Williams gone, Darius Slay's gone, which we all knew going into that, but anyways, he's gone. Mekhi Becton went to the Chargers. Brandon Graham retired. We knew all this was happening, but there were some severe losses, and that's a lot of snaps that you are losing on the defense. One surprising thing was CJ Gardner-Johnson. No one really thought he was going to go anywhere. However, Howie, I think, essentially thought CJ was going to ask for a raise, for an extension. He didn't want to deal with it because CJ is not exactly the most calm guy, and he didn't want to pay him. So, instead of dealing with that, they just traded him to the Texans for, honestly, not that much in return. A 5th-round pick and a really bad offensive lineman, or I guess a very unproven offensive lineman. So CJ Gardner-Johnson is gone as well. And then finally, another player they lost on the defense, who I think is important, and at least important to bring up, was Isaiah Rodgers. He was like the 4th corner on the team, but a lot of people thought they would sign him. They didn't. So as you can tell, this list is kind of adding up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The defense is losing like half of it. So they're keeping the coaching staff, losing half the players. The offense, the complete other side, they keep most of the players but they lost the coaching staff. So I guess we'll see what's more important maybe going into the year. There was one player that the Eagles offense almost lost, but didn't, and that's Dallas Goedert. There was a huge contract dispute. Howie didn't want to pay him. Dallas wanted more money, and it seemed like a done deal that he was going to get traded. However, I think there just weren't that many trade partners that were willing to pay him what he wanted, so compromise happened. He ends up staying this year, a key part of the offense that could really help the team this year, and he'll be a free agent next year, so we'll see. This may be his final ride, but this does really keep the offense intact. Only really changing one lineman, I would definitely be happy with that. And on the defense, how are they filling these holes? Because, well, you can't lose half your defense and not do anything. Well, it's a little bit of both. A little bit through free agency, a little bit through the draft, and then a little bit of just hoping players get better. For the second corner spot, it's just a competition between Keely Ringo, who everyone wants to win, and Adoree Jackson, a 29-year-old corner from the Giants who has been okay. He's bounced around the league a little bit. He's a talented guy, but you want your young guy to win, not the old guy that you just bring in through free agency. However, from every report that I've heard through the first 4 practices of training camp, it appears that Adoree Jackson is a little bit ahead of him, but that's not final. There's still a long ways to go. We still have to wait and see, and we may not know that for another few weeks or really towards the end of the offseason. So that's one of the really key battles to focus on. For the defensive line, one of these spots that lost the most snaps, it's mainly focusing on players who weren't the key in last year becoming the key this year. Several people such as Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith. These defensive ends are expected to have a big jump up this year. And it's not like we're saying, hey, randomly, I hope this random guy does this. No, they showed last year, especially the second half, that they were capable. They just need to do it again and for the whole season, not just for part of the season. At defensive tackle to replace Milton Williams, this is a big hole. There's Moro Ojoma, however you say it, and Jordan Davis, the huge guy out of Georgia. It's kind of a combination between those two for the most part. Moro, just go with his first name, has had a lot of flash last year, especially in the passing game, and a lot of people expect him to be the third D tackle on the team. However, Jordan Davis has lost a lot of weight. He appears to be in the best shape of his whole life, which I guess we've probably heard that the past few years, but it's happened again, and people are saying this year's different. He is primed for a breakout season. The Eagles don't even need a breakout season from either of them. If you could just combine the two and have a good season, put that next to Jalen Carter, and you'll be all good. However, this is just the players that were on the team last year. Who did they add? They added Azeez Ujulari and Josh Uche, who are okay edges, and we'll see if they can make a step forward. They're guys who have shown some promise, but the Eagles didn't really have to pay them that much. So clearly, they're not proven guys. It's not like we're bringing in a new number 2 edge rusher. We're just bringing in guys to compete on the edge. Then the last part of the offseason, the draft, what exactly happened there? So they had a lot of picks. However, they were mainly 5th and 6th round picks, which have such a small percentage chance of becoming successful. So I'll just talk about the 1st, 2nd, and 4th round pick. They did not have. So I'll just mention the 1st, 2nd, and 4th round pick. They did not make a 3rd round pick in this year. So the 1st round pick, Jahad Campbell, super promising linebacker / some people think can be an edge, but most people seem to say he's going to be a linebacker. The combination of him and Zach Bond can be one of the best linebacker duos in the NFL, which will be very unusual, especially for a Howie Roseman Eagles team. But hey, he's adapted for the future. He always says he wants to adapt and not just go with the crowd. So this is one way that he's doing that. Jahad Campbell mainly fell, at least from what I can tell, due to perceived injury risk, and he does have a hurt shoulder that he's coming back from. However, he looks like he's going to be all good to go It's just in the future, people think injuries may pile up. That's to be determined. Obviously, the Eagles coaching staff was not that worried about it. Medical team was not that worried about it. But so far through training camp, everything I've heard is that he has looked really good. So the linebackers will likely be Jahad Campbell and Zach Bond, a really exciting duo. Of course, Nakobe Dean is going to be out for a while. He's probably going to come back maybe halfway through the season. And it's hard to predict that far into the future. But I don't know, maybe they'll find a way to get the three on the field at the same time. Maybe they'll find a way to just constantly be dropping one in to rush the passer. But Campbell is the slot in at linebacker to cover over Nakobe Dean while he's gone. Or at least that's the plan for now. They drafted Andrew Makuba, who is a safety out of Texas, with the last pick of the second round. He is who the coaching staff would like to be the other safety next to Reed Blankenship. He did get hurt this week with a minor injury. However, he's missing very valuable time. And in the meantime, Sidney Brown, who's been here for several years, is looking pretty good in practice. So there might be a real competition for second safety between Andrew Makuba and Sidney Brown. And then there's also a wild card of what are you going to do with Cooper DeJean? Do you put him back into safety, which could happen if they like their options at inside corner and outside corner more than their option at second safety. But that is to be determined. That's up to Vic Fangio. You just have to let him work, and it's going to be a few weeks before we find out what's going to happen there. Then finally, their fourth round pick, Ty Robinson, just a big dude, a big defensive tackle out of Nebraska. Everyone seems to love him, and he's seen as a guy with not a super high ceiling, but a very high floor. So he's going to be an effective defensive tackle who can just go in there and play. You don't really have to worry about him being terrible. You may not expect him to be an all-pro, but he's just a solid defensive tackle, which this defense could really use. So that's kind of all that's happened. What's going to happen going into the year? What does Vegas think? Well, they're going to be good. They're going to be a really good team. Of course, Vegas has the Eagles favored as the team to win the division. They also are favored as the team to win the NFC and are the third place team, the third favorite to win the Super Bowl. Pretty good odds. I think this team can easily break the curse and go 2 division championships in a row. I know it hasn't been done in 20 years, but I think this team can do it, and I don't think the Commanders are that good. Cowboys, of course, with the Cowboys, and then don't even have to mention that fourth team because I'm talking about winning the division, not losing the division. So in recap, the Eagles had coaching staff change on the offense, but not players. On the defense, the coaching staff stayed intact, but lost a handful of good players. But they did keep all of their star talent, and I have to just trust that Howie knows what he's doing and that there were capable replacements waiting in the wings who will show their worth this year. So I think the Eagles will be able to continue their success. Will have, 13 or 14 wins, just another really solid season behind a really good running game. I think the passing game will be improved. Maybe a little more passing, less running than the prior year. Not due to inability to run, but just to give Saquon a little bit of a break. And then the defense, I think, will be just as good because Quinion Mitchell, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, J-Lex Hunt, Cooper DeJean, those guys are just all-stars who are young and are still getting better. So what do you think? Do you think the Eagles have a good season, better season than last year? Or will they disappoint us a little bit? I don't know, leave it down in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe to my channel for more videos, and I will see you later.